Okay. Hey everybody, sorry about that. I was having internet issues. Like the last time the modem, for some reason I had no internet connection on the computer. It was being weird. It hasn't started yet. It says RFK to speak at 5 p.m. Eastern. And I switched channels. I decided to do it on the second page because we have so much stuff happening tomorrow that I just thought it's best to not use up all the notifications today on the main channel. Because there's the Karen Reed stuff, there's the Secret Service stuff that's supposed to happen, there's Trump's announcement, and that's just the stuff that we know is happening. Who knows what we don't know is happening, you know what I mean? So I decided, let me just come on over here. Let me notify everybody. Let me just make sure people, there's 100 and something people sitting over there. Let me just tell them to come over here. 184 people. Okay. Let me tell them, you guys. How come it's not working? Oh.
Of all places, also in Chicago, Illinois, this time around in August. I do want to ask you as well, and I thought I should have asked it maybe last time, there are 13 keys as well, and as we continue to transition decade after decade into kind of a new era, 2024, are there any other maybe factors that you're looking at, and maybe have you ever considered adding to some of these keys?
The keys are as constant as the Northern Star. Every 4 years, someone says to me, something new has happened. You have to change the keys. We have an African-American running. Never had that before. A woman running. Never had that
Transition
before.
decade.
We have social media.
All right.
Never had that.
So, okay, we're getting some people to join over. So, and some people are just sitting there. We're launching on the second page for now because there's a whole bunch of stuff happening tomorrow. So I didn't want to waste notifications. All right. Okay, so we're waiting for Robert F. Kennedy. He said he has an announcement. In the meantime, though, okay, they're saying that Obama hasn't endorsed Kamala. Oh, okay, and R.F. Kennedy says he pushed it back to 5:15. Okay, just renews. My press conference will be streamed right here on X. Oh, snap, at 5:15. 5:15. All right, excuse me. All right, I see you, pimpin'. I see you. I see you, baby. What is R.F. Kennedy going to have to say? I don't know. Oh, you know what? He made an interesting post, though. Let me read this while we wait. I commend President Biden for stepping down. His infirmities were evident to any unbiased observer from the beginning. That's what I was talking about in the last stream. It was this progressive deterioration in his abandonment of the Democratic Party principles that prompted me to enter the race and ensure American voters had a viable, vigorous alternative to Donald Trump. Yet, the response of the DNC was to try and hide President Biden's degeneration from the American public and disable democracy to ram him through his party's nomination. Many Americans fear that the same DNC elites are about to rig the nominating process again to get monumentally unpopular vice president to step into Biden's shoes. I feel like they need to find somebody else. I mean, whatever. If they want to do that too, that's fine. But I just don't see Kamala having a chance of beating Trump. Anyway, it says, I call on the Democratic Party to return to its traditional commitment to democracy and exemplify it with an open process. Instead of anointing a candidate handpicked by DNC elites, the party should use neutral polling to identify the candidate who can best beat Donald Trump. The delegates should then select a nominee based on this information. I actually agree with that. If they had done this with the beginning, I would have not had to leave the Democratic Party. So, okay, so he said 5:15. He's coming. Now, Obama, this is interesting because some people are endorsing Kamala. They're saying Obama. What did Obama say? Look it up here. Obama. Biden. Barack Obama doesn't endorse Kamala Harris, saying Dems will pick outstanding nominee. I think that might be the best chance for them. Let them pick. Let the people pick. I don't know. Or saying Democrats would pick an outstanding nominee in his first statement. Former President Barack Obama didn't endorse Kamala Harris, saying Democrats would pick an unnamed outstanding nominee in his first statement. We will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that our leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. Some Democrats fear that Harris, 59-year-old vice president, could further diminish the party's chances against former President Donald Trump. Okay. I believe that Joe Biden's vision of a generous, prosperous, and united America that provides opportunity for everyone will be on full display at the Democratic Convention in August. Okay. All right.
As well. So we're following this here on Live Now from Fox, still just outside of the vice president's residency, the Naval Observatory there, the Kamala 2024 sign, potentially the first of many we'll see over the next month plus. I'm Andy Mack here on Live Now from Fox. You can see also just the amount of reaction here on social media to what is going on with President Biden stepping aside. So we're following all of this here on Live Now from Fox in terms of the Kamala Harris statement and much, much more. Also coming up here in just a matter of moments, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying he will be giving a press conference at 5 o'clock Eastern. We'll have that in full here on Live Now from Fox as soon as it gets going. We'll slide away for a quick 2-minute break.
Okay, take a little break. Waiting for RFK. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, guys, too, if you're not. I got recognized at Publix, the lady that was cashing me out. She was like, "Hey, Kid Bell!" I was like, "Oh, shit, hey." She was like, "I watch your chases." All right, let me put it over here. Boom. All right, let me end this other thing. All right. So we're good on that end. Log into this account. So, yeah, Twitter's on fire. A lot of people with different opinions. There's quite a few people backing Kamala. All right. Some people are confident, saying that they're going to beat Trump with Kamala. And some people are saying first black woman president. I'm looking at Twitter right now. I'm really curious. So I guess we are going to stream the DNC whenever that happens in August. Should be interesting. So Andy replied to my post. Some people were disagreeing, some people were agreeing, whatever. Andy said, "I mean, to be fair, no one could beat Donald Trump after he survived the assassination attempt. I don't like the man, but it's done." I think so too. I mean that led people and encouraged people to speak up and vote. But still, I think if they had a decent person running, they might have a chance. I just don't. Kamala, I think they had a better chance with Biden, to be honest with you. Pentagon, here it is.
We'll take you out to that. You can see the mic stand set up as of yet.
All right.
Down the road in Washington, D.C. area, you can see maybe a woman just outside of the VP residence. Maybe let's listen into what she has to say. Is a lot unfolding here. The American people watching.
And if you could say anything to Kamala right now, what would it be?
Kamala, we're going to be here for you. We're going to support you. We're going to get you through the finish line.
Could you spell your first and last name one more time?
Jackie, J-A-C.
All right, you see maybe an early Kamala Harris supporter for president, as outside of this, the Naval Observatory saying we heart Kamala and Kamala 2024. So still, as she intends to earn the nomination, we saw that statement from her. Also endorsed by Biden here on this Sunday afternoon with major breaking news.
And the nice lady in Publix that recognized me, she was like, "Oh, have you covered all this stuff that's going on? Are you going home to cover it?" I was like, "Yeah, I already talked about it earlier." Oh man, I already talked about it earlier, and she was like, "Yeah, but you got to be careful talking because people are crazy."
Do this in compliance with DNC rules, assuring everyone jobs are safe, but suggested there will be a new faces added to the mix. Of course, a major new face, whoever it is, atop the ticket. So as we're following this very, very closely here on Live Now from Fox, we'll take you out to that press conference from RFK Jr. as soon as it begins. But let's bring in right now, again, my colleague, my coworker, Andrew Kraft. Thank you again, as now we're 2+ hours into this breaking news event. What are we learning? Maybe what's the latest that you've heard?
So, Andy, I think it's interesting that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has decided to call this press conference there at the Kennedy family compound in Hyannisport. You don't know yet what he will say. Obviously, we will be taking this live. This is going to be underway momentarily here. Remember, though, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in the wake of the Trump assassination attempt, he and Trump were on the phone speaking. We know RFK Jr.'s son put out that video of the call. They talked about a number of things as well. There was some reporting last week that that conversation may have included some type of commitment on RFK Jr.'s part to endorse former President Trump. So we don't know what this press conference is going to be. All we know is we're going to hear from RFK Jr., who, of course, his entire life has been a Democrat, and in the wake of this campaign, he is running as an independent. And we had been talking about the RFK Jr. factor in all of this. Who would he help more? Who would he hurt more, Trump and or Biden? Obviously, the Biden question has now been neutralized and eliminated here. And so all this year, earlier this year, we had been wondering whether or not RFK Jr. would hurt the Biden camp or help the Biden camp, and on the flip side of that, hurt the Trump camp or help the Trump camp. And so we're expecting this press conference from RFK Jr. Not entirely sure what he's going to say. We'll just have to wait, though. He is saying he commends Biden for stepping down, saying that his infirmities were evident to any unbiased observer from the beginning. It was this progressive deterioration and his abandonment of Democratic Party principles that prompted me to enter the race there. So will RFK Jr. make an announcement on his campaign, on his viability as a candidate? Of course, we know the effort with signatures and the like to get on some of these state ballots in November continues for the RFK Jr. campaign. Of course, we know his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, has been out there on the campaign trail. And of course, we're talking about these 1968 parallels, Andy. Of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s father, Robert F. Kennedy, assassinated in 1968 there at the Ambassador Hotel when he was running for the Democratic nomination for president as well. So, of course, that assassination completely flipped on its head the campaign in 68 for Democrats as well. And we're seeing so many parallels, and we can get into them in just a moment here. But the parallels between 68 and now 24 are ever present, with Biden now announcing that he is withdrawing as well here. So.
Yeah, that is so very true as well. What is old is new again. I think you said that earlier on today. And of course, we're still watching this here just outside of that residence in Massachusetts. We'll take you out to it in just a little bit as soon as it begins. But I do want to continue on this conversation. I want to bring in former New York legislator Josh Lafazan here on Live Now from Fox. Josh, thank you so much for joining us here as a monumental, historic day in American history. Maybe what was the initial reaction, and what is your focus over the next 107 days moving closer to this election?
Sure. So today was a where were you type of day, and you'll never forget it, right? Joe Biden dropping out, let me first say, is remarkably selfless. This concept of the peaceful transition of power, it's uniquely American, right? It started with George Washington, who basically was anointed a king and decided to be a president and decided to walk away when he could have had unlimited power at a time in the world when that just didn't happen. And the only president since to not seek another term when they could, Teddy Roosevelt, Lyndon B. Johnson, and now Joe Biden. So he's in good company, and I want to thank him for his decades of service. What I will say is I believe Joe Biden dropping out of the race now puts the race for young voters completely into contention.
I'm going to stop you real quick, Josh. We're going to get to this in just a little bit, where we do see RFK Jr., so we'll put a timeout on this. Let's slide away, take you out to Massachusetts real quick for RFK Jr. here on Live Now from Fox.
By commending President Biden for a career in public service, for a long, long career, and representing and serving our country, and for his handling of the many difficulties and challenges, personal challenges and tragedies that he suffered during his life with so much admirable conduct, and the empathy that he derived from those experiences, that he was always proficient at showing to the rest of us. I want to add that a year ago, a little over a year ago, when I entered this race, I predicted that President Biden suffered from a degenerative condition that was not going to improve, and that it would make it impossible for him to govern effectively. The reaction of the DNC to that obvious condition was to hide it from the American public and to use their power over the Democratic Party nomination process to make sure that nobody could compete with President Biden in a way that would expose his deficiencies. And as a result, we are where we are today, which is in a period of crisis. And we have two crises, and they both derive from the same condition. And that condition is the emergence of the domination of corporate power over American democracy that accelerated beginning in 2010 with the Citizens United case that unleashed a tsunami of corporate money into the American political process. And both parties are now captured by that corporate money. And they've lost any kind of authentic connection to the American people or to the populist goals of the Republic and of democracy. On the Republican side, President Biden promised the last time around that he was going to drain the swamp. But instead, he came in and he appointed a pharmaceutical lobbyist and CEO to run HHS, Verizon lobbyist to run the FCC, a Goldman Sachs CEO to run the Treasury Department, an oil lobbyist to run the Interior Department, a coal lobbyist to run the Environmental Protection Agency, and so on. And only today, President Trump has announced that in his new administration, should he win this election, that Jamie Dimon will be his choice as Commerce Secretary, and that Larry Fink, the director of BlackRock, will run the Treasury Department. This is the swamp. These are swamp creatures. And his pick as vice president is a salute to the CIA and to the intelligence community and to the military-industrial complex. Their gravy train is going to continue. And President Trump has a connection to the American people, a populist connection, but in many ways, it's the same fraudulent connection that we saw with the DNC over the past year, concealing the real purpose of their objectives, which was to give us a president that represents corporate interests rather than the interests of the American public. We've seen two presidents who aren't really addressing any of the issues that are critical to our country. We have, if you look at President Biden and President Trump, you can look at them and say these are very different people. Their dispositions are different. Their personalities are different. Their expressed ideologies are very, very different. Their approach to politics could not be more distinct. But if you actually look at the policies over which they differ, over the landscapes in which they're staging this election, it's a very narrow Overton window of guns, of culture war issues, of abortion, of trans rights, etc. And the big existential issues that are actually facing our country are never addressed. The biggest of these, perhaps, is the national debt, which is now $34 trillion. The service on that debt alone is now greater than our military budget. Within 5 years, 50 cents out of every dollar that we collect in taxes will go to servicing that debt. Within 10 years, 100%. This is not sustainable. President Biden, President Trump offer no solutions. President Biden, on his webpage, has no policy issues addressing this or any other policy. He has a picture of himself and saying that we're going to finish the job, but he doesn't tell what job he's going to finish. If it's the job of running up the deficit till it's completely unsustainable, that's something that the American people should know about. President Biden can't talk about it, and President Trump can't talk about it because they're the ones chiefly responsible for running up that debt. President Trump came into office saying he was going to run the presidency as a business. He was going to balance the federal budget. And instead, he ran up an $8 trillion debt, more than all the presidents combined since George Washington. And President Biden is now on track to beat that number. So neither of them are even going to talk about this most existential issue. Another existential issue is our addiction to foreign wars. Both men have said that they're against war, and both men are feeding the war machine. The Ukraine war is a war that should have never been fought. It should have been settled. President Putin has offered twice to settle that war on terms that were enormously beneficial to the Ukrainian people and to the American people and to our security in Europe. And yet, President Putin initialed an agreement. President Zelensky initialed that same agreement in April of 2022. And President Biden sent Boris Johnson over to force Zelensky to tear up that agreement. And since then, it's probable that over 500,000 Ukrainian kids have died unnecessarily in a war that is enriching BlackRock because they own all of the military contractors that are supplying that war. And BlackRock not only has the contract to destroy Ukraine, but it also now has the contract which President Biden gave them to rebuild Ukraine. Neither of these presidents is going to deal with the chronic disease epidemic. When my uncle was president, 6% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, 60% do. Diabetes alone, when I was a kid, the typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes in his career, or a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 children who walk through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And nobody's talking about why this is happening. The cost of dealing with mitochondrial disorders in our children, dysfunction, which is diabetes, is now greater than our military budget. The biggest cost to our nation is the cost of treating chronic disease, $4.3 trillion annually. It's 5 times the price of our military budget. And nobody's talking about why did autism go from 1 in 10,000 in my generation and 70-year-old men today, right now, and yet my children's generation is 1 in every 34 kids, 1 in every 22 boys. Shouldn't we be looking into this? Shouldn't we be doing the science to figure out what's causing it? We know that it's an environmental exposure or an accumulation of environmental exposures. Genes don't cause epidemics. There has to be an environmental toxin. And all the corrupt merger of state and corporate power has been overseen by both political parties. It's something neither of them, the capture of our agencies by the industries that they're supposed to regulate. Our regulatory agencies have been turned into sock puppets and the industries they're supposed to protect us against. And all of these are issues that are critical to the American people. And finally, the most existential issue of all, the toxic division that is destroying our country. And President Biden's, the attempted assassination of President Trump this week is a symptom of that toxicity. We're now more polarized in this country than at any time.
Mental health, too.
Since the American Civil War. And nobody can see
Justice,
an ending to this. If President Biden gets elected, it's going to become more toxic. If President Trump gets elected, it's going to become more polarized. And neither of these men, both of them say, both of them recognize this is existential. But both of them, neither of them can do anything about it. Why? Because they feed on it. They feed it. They fuel it. And they are the products of that division. So we need a leader who can stop feeding into the vitriol, stop feeding into the anger, stop feeding into the marginalization, the polarization, and who can find those values that bring Americans together rather than focusing on these toxic issues that are intended to keep us all apart. And it's the BlackRock, the State Street, the JP Morgan who are profiting from that division. The very people that President Trump has promised to appoint to run our government who are profiting on it, because it's like the jangling of keys. They're saying, look over here, look at abortion, look at freedom of choice, look at trans rights, look at gun rights. And while we're all staring at each other's throats on those issues, on the jangly keys, they're robbing the bank over here. They're shifting the wealth upward to this new oligarchy of billionaires. And both President Trump and President Biden engineered the lockdowns in 500 days. They created 500 new billionaires, and they shifted $4.3 trillion northward from the American middle class to this new aristocracy that we have. And it's destroying our country. We need a change. If people want more of the same, they can vote Democrat and they can vote Republican. The only way we're going to get a change in this country is if people come together behind the one candidate who is independent, who has vowed to have a unity government, to bring Republicans and Democrats and others all together in a way that finds common ground in our country. A candidate who's the only candidate who's pro-choice, who's pro-environment, who's pro-civil rights, and who beats Donald Trump by 14%. There is no other candidate who can beat Donald Trump. Look at all the polls that have been done over the last year. I beat Donald Trump, and nobody else can.
Ooh.
Thank you very much.
The bottom half of your tweet talked about the nomination process in Chicago next month. Can we talk about that moving forward, on your kind of thoughts on being a neutral policy on who the Democrats finally nominate?
How you doing?
I care about our country more than I do about my election or anything else. And I think we need political parties that are actually attached to the American people, that are serving the interests of our republic. And if the Democrats do what I suspect they're going to do, which is to anoint Kamala Harris, a vice president who is monumentally unpopular within her own party.
Yeah.
But they're doing it because it's the easiest way to hold on to the money, and she's the. And I think if they don't open up the process, that it really is going to discredit this political party.
I think they should. Well, again,
remember all of my years. I can take the back of that.
The network's shutting him down. They don't want us to be able to hear what he's saying.
All right, you're just listening there as some of this feed going out a little bit. The feed just popped back up. We'll see if it continues to hold strong. Let's just continue to.
Shit, they don't even want you to hear. Let me go to his YouTube page.
Somebody else called for that. Is that something you would consider taking?
I would certainly listen to the party elders if they came to me. I would discuss something with them. I'm the only presidential candidate who can beat Donald Trump. And if I were them, I would do that. And I would certainly listen to their proposals.
Will you actively seek out that nomination? You're saying if they come to you, but
Oh, I am very content running where I am. And I believe I can win this election. I believe at this point it's a two-man race or two-person race, let me put it that way. And, and that I'm in the best position to win.
And if the polling then shows that you're not in the best position, whoever the Democrats go with, whether it's Vice President Harris or someone else, will you, because what you cite often are your internal polls. So if your internal polls show that you will actually lose, would you step down and step aside?
Well, I would. That's an interesting proposal, and I would consider taking that proposal if the other candidates did the same.
You mentioned Kamala Harris is who you said that the Democratic Party appeared poised to put into that position. You were critical there, obviously, of President Biden's policy. What, if anything, is different? How do you compare yourself to Kamala Harris if she does become the Democratic nominee for president?
Well, I think, Kamala Harris is the party of war. She's a war hawk. The Democratic Party was always the peace party. Kamala Harris is a war hawk on Ukraine. She's a war hawk on China. I think that we should be figuring out ways to coexist with the rest of the world as best we can. Of course, we need to protect our national security. I think she's not going to do anything about the national deficit. I've never heard her speak about the chronic disease epidemic, I think she's a product of the corporate control of our democracy. And she's one of the authors of, in terms of civil rights, she has one of the worst civil rights record of any public official. She's the author of one of the primary authors of the school to prison pipeline. She kept 5,000 people, despite a Supreme Court order that she released 5,000 prisoners of nonviolent drug crimes who were illegally in California jails. She kept them in there saying that we needed them for firefighting and for other public work services. And that's just a modern version of indentured servitude, a modern version of slavery. She was one of the two leading public officials in California, which now has the worst education system, 49th in education outcomes in the country. 50% of the homeless people in our country are in California, and she was behind those policies. I don't think she has a good, I don't think, in terms of the traditional democratic principles, I don't think she has a credible record.
In all the turmoil of the past week, you ever had it gone through your mind you regret leaving the Democratic Party? Because with this turmoil, that might have left you as a front runner as you speak today.
Well, I wouldn't be the front runner because by the time I left the Democratic Party, it was really clear that, and this is the only reason I left, that the rules have been rigged to prevent me from winning. So I would be in the same position as Dean Phillips is today or Marianne Williamson. I wouldn't, which is, sidelined. And the only way that I avoided getting sidelined was to leave the party, which neither of them were able to do.
I go to a lot of your events, and I've heard your stump speech, and a lot of today was your stump speech, but you're still focusing a lot on President Biden. He is out of the race. In fact, at one point you even said, you were highly critical of President Biden, and said if President Biden, were to win, if Donald Trump were to win, but he's announced for hours now that he's out. Were you just confused, or have you moved on from it? It wasn't at all. It stood out.
I was making a point about there being very, very little difference between the two parties, and the current iteration of President Biden's policies is Kamala Harris, who has never voiced any differentiation, any distinction between herself and President Biden. I'm not going to, I just made some criticisms of her own policies, but I don't know what her national policy, there literally is no policy on their website. So we don't know what she stands for. My assumption is, according to her, that she stands for all the things that President Biden stood for.
Bob, does today's news affect your campaign moving forward?
Well, I think everything affects my campaign. I can't tell you how, and I try not to make predictions because I try not to do spin. But I think, as any of you can see, that we're living in a very, very dynamic situation now. It's unprecedented in American history. In fact, the closest thing to this, when I look back on American history, is the 1968 primaries where my father participated and was killed. And ironically, the convention, the Democratic convention this year is being held once again in Chicago. And in 1968, the Democratic Party tried to fix that convention with Mayor Daley basically anointing Hubert Humphrey, who was the DNC's choice, and there was chaos that erupted, and it destroyed the Democratic Party for a decade. So I think we have a lot to learn from that history. As I think Mark Twain said, that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, and it's really rhyming right now.
Mr. Kennedy, you said you are the candidate to beat Donald Trump. You mentioned that multiple times, yet I think in the debate in June you failed to qualify for that. What is it that you see that makes you confident that you can not only beat Donald Trump, but also whoever the candidate will be?
Well, I would point out to you that I qualified for the debate better than any other candidate. Clearly, we all see today that President Biden is not going to be on any ballot. I was on the ballot, and I have enough signatures to be on the ballot today in 29 states. I exceeded the polling thresholds that CNN established. I had 6 polls where I was from their named polling groups, where I was over 15%, and they arbitrarily excluded them. So I believe that I will continue to qualify for the next debate, and hopefully they'll put me on the stage this time.
Let's go.
If you don't make the debate the next time, will you take that as a sign?
No, I'm not going to. That would be the opposite of a sign. That would be the networks colluding with the parties to keep me off the stage, which they did the last time. So I'm not going to cave into that just because, your networks are saying, are fencing me out, which they are. You will not see me on ABC, CBS, NBC, or CNN doing a live interview. They won't let me on. They're colluding with the Democratic Party to keep me out of the limelight. If you remember when Ross Perot ran, he was on CNN every night. That's why he got so popular. I have greater popularity than Ross Perot without ever getting on the network. Only one time have I been allowed on the network in a live interview, and that's with Aaron Burnett, and they never did it again. And we asked them, Stephanie Spears right here, my press secretary, who's on the phone every day with the bookers from every one of those, and they just say, no, we're not going to let him on. So there's a monolithic wall. The television networks that are owned by the public, those airwaves, are licensed to use them, but those airwaves are owned by the American public. We used to have an equal time rule. We used to have a fairness doctrine that would make those networks put me on. But today we don't. Those laws have been gutted, and they're able to just to make common cause with the Democratic Party to make sure the American public does not see a live interview with me.
Thanks, Bob.
I'll just ask one final question. Touching back to the events of last week, I've noticed you have Secret Service protection now. On a personal level, for you and your family, your thoughts on that, having that now as you move forward?
I'm very grateful for it. Listen, it's intrusive for me, so it's like, be careful what you pray for. But I'm very grateful for it because, when my father was shot, there were 6 bystanders shot that night, including Paul Schrade, who took a bullet to his head, one of my father's best friends. And my uncle, President Kennedy, was shot. Governor Connolly was also shot. When Ronald Reagan was shot, Mr. Brady was also shot. So in almost all of these attempts at assassination,
we're calling about your car's extended warranty.
Trump was shot last week. There was also a bystander who we all pray for who was killed, and 2 others grievously wounded. Oh, it's very important to me to have the Secret Service here, not so much for my own protection, but to protect people, to dissuade people who might want to attack me and who might hurt or even kill a bystander.
Any final comment, Mr. Kennedy?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you all very much for coming out here on a Sunday.
All right, Kennedy has spoken. Robert Kennedy Jr. Now, let's just put it in the corner.
Yeah. I'll just go in the corner.
So he initially ran for the Democratic Party nomination, but announced October 9th, 2023, that he was running as an independent. Some people really like him. Some people don't. Some people say he's too conspiracy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. holds a diverse mix of traditionally liberal, conservative, and libertarian views in addition to his conspiracy theories, according to Wikipedia. But he's not for either party. He's not for Trump or Biden. He's not for any of them. Kind of interesting to see some of the things he had to say. AOC.
And I'm going to say what a lot of these folks aren't saying.
Oh, shit. Tell us.
I'm just going to say it.
Tell us.
If you think that there is consensus among the people who want Joe Biden to leave, that they will support Vice President Harris, you would be mistaken. And I'm going to say that because if they're going to come out and say all their little things on background off the record, but they're not going to be fully honest, I'm going to be honest for them. I'm in these rooms. I see what they say in conversations. A lot of them are not just interested in removing the president. They are interested in removing the whole ticket.
Oh.
And
what's he trying to say? Even Kamala? Oh. Also trying to remove Kamala Harris. All these endorsements you're seeing are efforts by those resisting the coup. The party is in disarray. Oh, so maybe Kamala's next. Maybe that DNC isn't going to go how she wants it to go. There was another post. I don't know what's going on, but they said that Gavin Newsom supposedly, according to the world of Twitter, canceled his appointments for tomorrow without explanation. Is Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom the Democratic ticket for 2024? Imagine that.
Observatory saying Kamala 2024, we heart Kamala. We're also learning, as you see here, the FEC Commission talking about Kamala Harris there. Harris for president, quickly moving there as she intends to earn and win that nomination. Let's just continue on here on Live Now from Fox and bring back in former New York legislator Josh Lafazan. Thank you again. Thank you for sticking with us throughout that press conference as well. He mentioned maybe the uncertainty of the DNC, maybe how difficult are those conversations, maybe how many variable conversations are there going on with Vice President Kamala Harris being maybe the front runner, but other options on the table. Is that what's going on there?
I think so. And Andy, I want to harken back to what I said before we cut to break about this is a uniquely American tradition, right? George Washington was anointed a king and said instead he would just be president. And after 2 terms, he made the extraordinary decision to step aside. It had never been done before in history. And Joe Biden, what he did today was remarkably selfless because this peaceful transfer of power, Washington.
Oh, what happened? Did my internet cut off? No.
Pickups came out and said we should reserve judgment on candidates and hold our powder until the process is outlined. Personally, I believe an open convention is absolutely the way to go. I think the party should have some sort of open process. Transparency is a good thing and it's healthy. It's healthy for the party to put its candidates on display.
I feel like people move their plates around in Congress cafes so she doesn't sit with them.
No. Graham Sauer, thank you for the 5. Drama Alert made this post. I guess this was from Reddit. And it says, Redditors are sterilizing themselves out of fear that Joe Biden dropped out. Social Darwinism. We're effed. I need to go get my uterus removed while I still have some bodily autonomy left. I refuse to live in the effing Handmaid's Tale. I need to do the same. I was already planning on it, but my timeline is going to be much different. I had mine removed last month, just in the nick of time apparently. I got a hysterectomy in December. Do it. Recovery was much easier than I thought it would be. Check out. I mean, I don't know if that makes them feel better, I guess. It's up to them. They'll do what they want to do. Let me see what else is popping on the world of Twitter. It's a mess. Social media is in disarray. Let's see what else. What else? What else is popping off online? Kennedy's response. Kamala Harris's pronoun intro sparks online firestorm. What pronoun thing? In a series of social media posts, various users and political groups shared a quote from Kamala Harris introducing herself with her pronouns and describing her attire. Oh, hold on. I haven't seen this.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
Why does she? Why say the color that she's wearing? Is that for? I don't know. Is that for a reason? For like maybe for handicapped people or something? I don't get it.
And
my pronouns are she, her. So where's her whole thing? Where's this at? Wow, so she's taking over. Let me see. Kamala Harris. Where'd she put that video ad on? Throwback. Oh, this is old. Is this an old video? Throwback. I'm Kamala Harris. Maybe this is an old video. Replacement Harris versus Buttigieg. That guy's still around? Buttigieg? Buttigieg? Many users expressed support for Vice President Kamala Harris as a natural successor, emphasizing her current position on the ticket and the need for unity. Some users also mentioned Pete Buttigieg as a strong candidate, praising his communication skills and political acumen. The conversation includes concerns about Biden's health and the party's strategy for upcoming election with a focus on defeating Donald Trump. Okay. Buttigieg. Man. Political firestorm. What else is going on? There's a bunch of names flying around. Kamala is a VP. Confirmed endorsements of Vice President Harris as of 5 p.m. President Biden, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, some governors, some senators, Republicans too. Senators. No. Okay, representatives. Congressional Black Caucus. Okay. Interesting. I don't know. Possible VP picks: Senator Mark Kelly, Governor Andy Beshear, Governor Roy Cooper, Governor Josh Shapiro. Dr. Shapiro.
Somebody who's 30. Young voters, Biden had led by 4. Do young voters finally come home if they pick a younger running mate to go along with a younger Harris? So all questions that have to be answered by both parties.
Yeah, you know, Josh, it's so interesting that that message now coming.
Look at this shit that somebody posted. This is Biden's missed calls and text. 52 missed calls from President Zelensky. President Zelensky text, "My money's still coming, right? I'm scared. Please answer." Bruh! That's funny. All right, let's see. All right, I guess that's it for now, man. I'm gonna chill. Tomorrow, there's a lot happening tomorrow, so we'll see what tomorrow brings. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button, all that good stuff. Be safe. A lot of crazy people out there. Be happy. Take care of yourself. All right, hit the like button. Peace. Bye. Bloop, 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 bloop. Maybe we'll get a chase later or something.